I used to hate English. When I was in the 4th grade, I remember the moment that my abilities to understand the English language and its grammar began to be stunted. There was a particular moment in class where I saw everyone in the class, like a ship, begin to just go in front of me. And as they were heading off in front of me, I stayed the same. I did very poorly with English and grammar in school, and so I hated it. I hated it for a long time. I have a natural inclination to history. I like numbers. I like science, but man, English was rough for me. So for a long time, I couldn't even tell you the difference between a verb and a noun, because I was too scared to admit that I didn't know what it was. And so I would do everything I could to get by with school, but I didn't understand it. I didn't love it. It was something that I was able to perform at, but did not enjoy. And this continued into college for me. And the first half of college was definitely different than the second half. First half of college, I didn't take much of it too seriously, or if I did, I didn't know how to perform well, because throughout school, even through high school, I never had to study. It was very easy to do. I would just show up, do it, and get an A on the test. And I finished high in my class, not at the top, but fairly well. But in college, it all changed. I never thought much of school. But it was about in the middle of college, things began to change, because I realized I wasn't that smart. I thought I was smart because of the grades I could make, because of my degree in accounting and all of the hard physics classes and calculus and all of the different things that I was learning. But I was really just haughty. I was really just prideful, where I thought I was something that I was not. And so my perspective of myself began to change. And I realized that education wasn't about getting a job. Education should be about becoming a human being. That it's the training up of wisdom and virtue in a person. It's the classical education perspective. And so I kind of just came to that conclusion by myself. And I knew I needed to change. So what I did was I began reading the classics of Western culture. I started with the Iliad. I read the Odyssey. It was actually my second time. I loved the Odyssey. And then I read the Aeneid. And I read all 3 of those in a span of 6 months, back to back to back. And so I plowed right through it. And at the same time, I read for the first time The Lord of the Rings. I began to read Shakespeare shortly after. So my love for the English language took a long time to come around. It took a long time to begin something that I was not proficient at. And the reason is pride. That is the sole reason. Because I wasn't humble enough to admit that I was not good at this and that I needed to change. And secondly, it was an unnatural feeling towards your own language. This is the language that I speak, and I hated it. How unnatural is that? Where English is the only language in the world that's hated by its own speakers. And English speakers are taught by English-speaking professors to hate their own language that they are speaking to each other about. So it's ludicrous. It's unnatural. And it was prideful. Where I thought it was better that I speak a different language, but I don't speak any other language than English. And so it changed. A lot of things changed for me. And so if you're in a position where you don't enjoy speaking English, but you know you should, here's my suggestions. The first is, don't make it academic. When you make things academic, you make it too heavy. It's too burdensome. It should be very, very light. It should be a very light yoke upon yourself that you place. This isn't a strong endeavor. This isn't a long trek. It's not an adventure. It's simple. It is easy. The second thing is enjoy it. Enjoy the things you're reading. If you enjoy the things that you're reading, you're going to love the language that is written in, because enjoyable things are written not only proficiently, but beautifully. Beautiful things help you love to learn the language that is written in a beautiful way. For example, you're going to begin to love the English language much easier if you read aloud the King James Bible than if you read a communist college student's essay on why everyone should be a communist. And note, I was not a communist. I am never a communist. But the point is, if something is written beautifully, you're going to love the means by which something was done. If you enjoy the result of working out, you're going to start enjoying lifting weights. But the first time you do it, it's really, really painful, and it's not enjoyable. And so, for me, it was not enjoyable reading English. It was not enjoyable studying it. But I got through it. I did it. And the results afterwards were, oh, I'm beginning to enjoy this. This is more enjoyable than my interest in history and science. So start simple and make it easy. So what do you actually do? What do you actually begin to read? Read anything. Read anything that you like. What are you interested in? Pick up a book in that. Pick up a book that's well written. You could do what I did, which was pick up the classics. You could pick up Spencer's The Fairy Queen. You could pick up Shakespeare. You could pick up the King James Bible. You could read Milton. These things are well written, and they're beautiful, and they're easy. Don't believe anyone who says that Shakespeare is hard because they haven't read Shakespeare. And if they haven't read him properly. I'm not recommending that you pick up No Fear Shakespeare, all right? Don't pick up a summary, pick up the actual thing and read it aloud, because it was written for it to be heard, not read. Remember, these things were performed, not seen. Well, not seen on a piece of paper. these were performed on a stage. So use it how it was intended. Shakespeare is very lyrical in its sounding. It's poetry. It's just poetry. It's poetry inside of a fairy tale. That's all it is. Shakespeare wrote fairy tales, and he wrote it in poetry. That's all it is. Read the King James Bible, right? In the Gospel of Luke, the angels came to the shepherds, and said, "And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said to them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be the sign unto you, ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling cloths, lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth peace, goodwill toward men." That's beautiful. It's not only something that's regarded as influential, it's simple. These were men who knew the English language and knew Greek, and they translated it in such a way that they not only did a fantastic job in translating, they also did a fantastic job in making it beautiful in the English language. If you read the predecessor to the King James, it's not as easy. It's not as simple to go through. The Geneva Bible, it's not as smooth. It doesn't sound as good. So the love of sound is a great quality to start with. What sounds good, right? What do you like to hear? Poetry's great, Shakespeare's great, King James Bible is great. You could start with Milton in Paradise Lost. Some of the English words are a little hard. Maybe not start there. You could pick up a simple Shakespeare or King James Bible and start there, just to hear the sound of the English language. And then you can move into Tennyson and his poetry. These are simple things. They sound good and they're simple. And pick something you enjoy. What's a story you like? I love the Odyssey. All right? Start there. You could pick up an amazing translation of the Odyssey. And I recommend that you pick it up in poetry form, not a narrative, because that's how Homer intended, was it to be. It's a poem. It's a poem. It's not written as a narrative. It's a poem. So read it in a form of poetry, in form of verse, and start there. Start where it's simple. Make it very easy on yourself. Pick something that you enjoy. Pick something that sounds good. Those are the three qualities. You could even you could start as low as Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. He writes very, very simply. If you read Winnie the Pooh, it's a series of syllables and sounds, of repetitive syllables and sounds, especially when Pooh comes up with a rhyme. It's very simple sounds, but it's very soothing to the ear. Remember, he's writing to children out there. And also, a quick note, don't be ashamed to pick up a children's book. C.S. Lewis, even into his 50s, said that he was reading children's books every day. It's beneficial. It's beneficial not only for your love for English, but also for beautiful stories. That's another little qualifier there, is make sure it's beautiful. Make sure it's worth something. Don't pick up trash. That'll make you hate it. Right? If the first time you go to a gym, for going back to that example, the first time you go to the gym, it's some dungy area, right? It looks more like a dungeon than an actual gym. Well, of course you're going to hate working out, because you don't know if the monster's going to come out of the walls and eat you, right? So there's a lot of setting. Setting plays a great part in loving English. The setting of English is in books. So pick up good books. Pick up faithful books. Pick up books that last. And you will quickly see the beauty of the English language, its sound, its structure, begin to fill your soul with light, as it did mine. If you like that, then subscribe and share the episode. If you want to see more content like this, then head over to juniusbrutus.substack.com and subscribe for a free ebook in your email. All of this is to help you become a defender of the past and a preserver of the future.